Some hours ago, we had discovered a giant. Now we had discovered a man. The giant was the man, but being a man, he could no longer be a giant. The man had undermined the giant. Hello again, and welcome back to the series. I'm your host, and today we're looking at Fun and Fancy Free, Disney Animation's two-hander package film from 1947, their ninth theatrical animated classic. This script was written by Don Arnold.
I do, however, have a head. It's attached to my body, it is me.
So thank you to the Don.
It'll still be me.
If you're new here, welcome for the first time of I hope many, and if you're returning, I thank you once again for your continued patronage. Now sit back, relax, and let's get into this together. During the early 1940s, before Walt decided to pivot entirely to package films, both Mickey and the Beanstalk and Bongo began their development as two separate feature-length films. In the late 1930s and early 40s, Mickey Mouse's popularity had fallen behind that of characters like Donald Duck, Goofy, Pluto, the Fleischer Brothers' Popeye, and Warner Brothers' Porky Pig and Bugs Bunny, among others. To put Mickey back on top of the animated pantheon, Disney and his artists created cartoons such as Brave Little Tailor and The Sorcerer's Apprentice, the latter of which was eventually expanded into the project known as Fantasia 1940. In early 1940, during the production of Fantasia, animators Bill Cottrell and T.E.A.R pitched Walt personally on the idea of a feature film based on Jack and the Beanstalk, starring Mickey Mouse as Jack, and with Donald Duck and Goofy as supporting characters. When they pitched it to him, Disney apparently burst out laughing with tears rolling down his cheeks with joy. As Cottrell and he later recalled. Disney enjoyed the initial pitch for this idea so much that he invited other employees to come over and listen to it as well. However, he said that as much as he enjoyed the pitch of the film itself would never go into production because, as Disney claimed, they had murdered my characters. Well, Walt, we all know how you feel about murdering your characters. Anyway, Cottrell and he were eventually able to talk Disney into giving their Beanstalk project the green light and funding for story development under the working title The Legend of Happy Valley, which began production on May 2nd, 1940. The original treatment was more or less the same as what became the final half hour included in this double feature film. However, for Mickey's half, there were a few deleted scenes. For example, there was a scene in which Mickey took the cow to market where he meets Honest John and Gideon from Pinocchio, who con him into trading his cow for the magic beans. This is a really fun early example of Disney attempting to world build by placing yet more fun little references and cameos to his earlier films and his newer releases. While the pair of anthropomorphized Pinocchio villains didn't end up appearing opposite Mickey here, I kind of wish they had, as I always love these little connective ties that hint towards the enormously vast, wider princess verse that there is yet for us to explore.
Can't imagine who reads this stuff!
Another version of the story treatment had a scene where Mickey gave the cow to the Queen, played by Minnie Mouse, as a gift, and in return she gave him the magic beans. However, both scenes were cut when the story was trimmed for inclusion in Fun and Fancy Free, and the film ultimately does not explain how Mickey got the beans. You could say it does not spill the beans on the beans. I'll talk a little bit more later on about how I wish this entire movie had just been ultimately this proposed expanded version of the Mickey and the Beanstalk half, but yeah, I really like both of these ideas, and could easily see both of them playing out to perfection and fitting in seamlessly with the rest of this story, especially the second Minnie Mouse as Queen version of events. Shortly after the rough animation on Dumbo was completed in May 1941, The Legend of Happy Valley went into production, using many of the same animation crew as Dumbo, although RKO doubted it would be a success. Since this was a simple, low-budget film with only a handful of extremely familiar characters for the artists to animate, in the 6 months following, 50 full minutes of animation had been completed for Happy Valley. Then, due to the Disney animators' strike of 1941, as well as World War II cutting off Disney's foreign release markets, on October 27, 1941, Disney put the production for The Legend of Happy Valley on hold. Meanwhile, production was starting on Bongo, a film based on a short story written by Sinclair Lewis for Cosmopolitan magazine in 1930, an unusually recent publication for Walt to adapt. It was originally suggested that Bongo could be a sequel to Dumbo, and some of the cast from the 1941 film were planned to appear as supporting characters. However, the idea never fully came together into a storyline as cohesive as the original Dumbos had been. Walt had also reportedly been, from very early on in Disney Animation's days, specifically against producing sequels to his original films, preferring each Disney story to stand on its own merits. He apparently got really mad when he found out that some animators were trying to do some storyboarding or some art for a potential Snow White sequel, I think.
Yes, you will? No! What do you mean? No!
There's a story behind that, but anyway, I'll look it up and see if I'm right about that. But yeah, he did not like the idea of sequels. That's why they did not refer to, The Three Caballeros as a sequel, and they did not do an official sequel until Rescuers Down Under, all the way in the 1990s. In earlier drafts, Bongo had a chimpanzee as a friend and partner in his circus act. She was first called Beverly, then Chimpy, but the character was ultimately dropped when condensing the story. In this longer feature-length treatment, Bongo and Chimpy also ran into two mischievous bear cubs who were also subsequently dropped.
Wicked.
Originally, the designs for the characters were more realistic, but when paired with the other short for Fun and Fancy Free, the designs were simplified and drawn in a more cartoony style. The script was nearly completed by December 8, 1941, the day after the attack on Pearl Harbor. On that same day, the United States military took control of the studio, essentially, and commissioned Walt Disney Productions to produce instructional and war propaganda films.
That's the old stuff, kiddo. He's a smarter fellow with brains, huh? Like me.
Due to this sudden shift in focus, pre-production work on Bongo, as well as early versions of Alice in Wonderland and Peter Pan, were shelved. With this shift in focus, Disney decided to pivot fully to the package film strategy that he employed starting with the 1943 release of Saludos Amigos, leaving these two almost feature-length projects in limbo for the next few years, until he could figure out what to do with them. Walt felt that since the animation of Bongo and The Legend of Happy Valley, which had by this point been renamed to Mickey and the Beanstalk, was not, to his eye, sophisticated enough to allow either of them to be their own official Disney animated feature, he decided to include the two unrelated stories in their own two-hander package film, either as a pair together or each paired with their own other buddy story. Now, I disagree. Personally, I think that while the animation on Bongo is a bit lackluster, I think the animation throughout most of Mickey and the Beanstalk is pretty stellar, as I will get into eventually, but I think it's great. Throughout the 1940s, Walt had suggested the pairing of Mickey and the Beanstalk with their adaptation of The Wind in the Willows, which was in production around this time, into a package film tentatively titled Two Fabulous Characters. Ultimately, Mickey and the Beanstalk was cut from Two Fabulous Characters and paired with Bongo instead. By late 1947, Wind in the Willows was paired with The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, and the Two Fabulous Characters project had been retitled as The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, although I actually like Two Fabulous Characters way better. That rolls off the tongue so much nicer than The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. Every time The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad comes up in the script, I just don't want to say it. I like that movie well enough, but I just don't like saying the title. Two Fabulous Characters, way better. Celebrities Edgar Bergen and Dinah Shore introduced the segments in order to appeal to a more mass audience. Dinah Shore, by this point, was a regular collaborator with Disney Animation. You'll remember her from last week in Make Mine Music. Jiminy Cricket from Pinocchio sings I'm a Happy-Go-Lucky Fellow, a song written for and cut from Pinocchio before its release. That also means that we have the return of Ukulele Ike! My man, the one and only Ukulele Ike, also known as Cliff Edwards, but anyway. I absolutely love the opening title track, Fun and Fancy Free, over the credits. These aren't always my favorite kinds of songs in the Disney catalog, but this one is a complete bop, and I was dancing on my couch as I listened. I also quite like the intro with Jiminy Cricket. I love how casually Disney Animation used to reuse characters back then, like how Mickey appears in long sequences in both Fantasia and this film, and how Donald Duck appears in 4 separate animated classics in the 40s. Goofy is also making his second and final appearance in the package film era in this film. There is no information I can find on how much the film cost to make as a whole, but it made $3.16 million back in its initial theatrical run, making it most likely another solid financial success, if the budgets of the last few theatrical releases are any indication of this two-story film's stipend. What a smart word. Unfortunately, before we get to Mickey and the Beanstalk, we must first talk about Bongo. Bongo is one of the weirdest half hours in any. Weird, weird, weird.
Weird, weird.
Bongo is one of the.
So we didn't do that this time.
I love you, Rachel. Okay. Bongo is one of the weirdest half hours in any Disney animated classic. The story of a highly skilled circus bear who, abused and neglected by his owners, breaks out of his train car. Bongo then meets a girl bear of his approximate age and size, and they have a love connection. The part about this that I actually like is when they touch noses, and their two bear noses come together to make the shape of a heart. It's a cute little animation touch, but beyond that, the animation isn't really anything special in this one, and that's pretty much all I like about it. So, the thing that I like about this is when their noses touch. That's it. The story is really not complex or engaging enough for an entire half hour short. This should have been 10 at the most, and in a true package film, not as half of a two-hander. Certainly, I don't know how they were going to wring an entire freaking hour out of this narrative. My lord, that would have been tedious. Oy. The rest of the story consists of the song Say It With a Slap,
Well, I can change that in a hurry.
in which we learn that every deer and every dove has a way of making love, but a bear likes to say it with a slap. That's very sensual, Disney. Clutching my pearls right now. Followed by Bongo's battle with a massive steroid bear called Lumpjaw over the affectations of the aforementioned. over the affections of the four. Oh, God, I'm having a Biden moment. All right.
and Joan Shingang, I'm going to pronounce right, Shanga.
Over the affections of the aforementioned female bear Lulu Bell. This isn't so much a fully satisfying narrative as it is about 7 minutes of silly business stretched out to 4 times that length of actual runtime. The voice acting is also kind of annoying in this one, which is unusual for this era of Disney. The voice summoning Bongo to break out of his train car especially makes me want to drive a nail deep into my ear rather than listen to it any longer. There's really not much at all to recommend this short, apart from a couple of silly gags and the cringe of the fact that the bears all literally express any and all romantic or sensual feelings of attraction with a powerful smack to the face. Maybe that's why Lumpjaw's face is so big, he's just been hit so many dang times. He's such a lover boy.
Do you think there's any relationship between the size of someone's foot and the size of someone's ding-dong?
However, the animation isn't great. The narrator is pretty irritating, speaking as if to a toddler for most of it, and honestly, this ends up feeling a bit too much for literal babies than even Disney should be. Yeah, Dinah Shore, you did not do a good job with most of this one. You went too hard on the baby talk. The 3 main characters aren't very interesting, as Bongo has very little distinctive to his personality at all. Lulu Bell is an utterly bland early Disney cute female love interest cliche, just basically the main character, but a little darker or lighter in tone with with a bow and a slightly curvier body. And Lumpjaw is just an inferior knockoff Pete, who, by the way, is not canon. Video coming on that at some point. Pete's not canon. He's his own thing. Pete's a Disney cryptid. Pete does not exist. The limit does not exist.
The limit does not exist. The limit does not exist!
I honestly have very little to say about this short that isn't quite negative, and even though I don't particularly hate it, it's pretty funny, honestly. I cannot pretend that it isn't objectively very, very stupid, and to me, one of the worst segments in any Disney animated classic, package film or not. Yeah, golly, it's just poor. Just bad lead character, bad music, bad narration, bad animation, stupid storyline, super cliche, dumb villain. Very meme-worthy, but only for the memes, basically. Only for the memes, boys and girls.
This is the worst!
The ending image of the tree trunks bending together to create the shape of a heart is a cute callback to the nose thing, I guess, and the music over that ending is kind of pretty. I'm struggling to write anything that doesn't just sound mean, so I'll pretty much end the Bongo analysis here. There's nothing in Bongo's story to talk about that isn't explored far better in Bolt and Dumbo, respectively, thematically. The most obvious comparisons, what with the circus and performance aspects. The weakness of this short really drags down my score for the film overall, which is a shame, as the next short is pretty damn good. Yeah, just like, I could talk about the themes, but the themes are super basic and better done in those movies. Before we get to the superior short, however, we have the only almost fully live-action segment in the film. After Jiminy listens to the story of Bongo on the radio, he is invited to a birthday party for a little girl, which he promptly hops off to. The party is for the then 9-year-old Luana Patton, a child actress who had previously appeared in Disney classic of the time Song of the South.
You can have it if you want it.
Full video on that movie eventually. The party is attended by Luana herself, as well as famous ventriloquist Edgar Bergen and his two dummies, the bold and snarky Charlie McCarthy, and the affably slow-witted Mortimer Snurd.
Do you trust your wife?
Well, do you? It's possible for you to retire for life on Do You Trust Your Wife?
Bergen is good at what he does, and he has a charming screen presence and a welcome addition after the Bongo short. Bit of a palate cleanser there. Luana herself is also fine. However, it's never not weird to see these live-action segments in between. And so as good as Bergen is, the dummies just feel like such a bizarre and unnecessary framing device. Jiminy Cricket himself was more than enough of a through line to tie the shorts together. Now, if Bergen had simply been the narrator of this second short, that would be one thing, as he does do an excellent job of that once the animation gets going. However, I simply think that Jiminy Cricket alone should have been the framing element to tie these two shorts together, without the live-action scene in between them with the child actress. Anyway, now that we've addressed the live-action segment ventriloquist elephant in the room, let us move on. This is a thoroughly great half hour of animation, possibly the best half hour in the entire package film era. There's a lot going on here. First of all, this is one of my favorite times that Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, and Goofy have ever shared the screen. All three of their characterizations are quite strong distillations of their own classic personas, and their chemistry with each other is as clear here as it ever was. It reminds me of, did any of y'all ever watch that early 2000s Disney tune, Three Musketeers? Mickey, Donald, and Goofy movie? Because I think I might have to watch that soon and do a D.E.A.R on that sometime too. Maybe when we get to it in the 2000s, but anyway, it's an interesting movie. In addition to those three being strong on a base level, the other two characters in this short, the magically singing Golden Harp and Willie the Giant, are both fun and intriguing on a story level and as they relate to magic in the wider Disney princess verse. Let's start with Willie the Giant, as his magic is a lot easier to pin down and more familiar to us as an audience. Willie has several magic powers, and may have more that we don't get to see, but the ones that he showcases in the story are that of growing and shrinking in size, the ability to fly, and most importantly, the ability to change into animals of different colors of his choosing, or at the very least, pink.
On Wednesdays, we wear pink.
This is essentially the exact same power set as Madame Mim from The Sword in the Stone, and similar to Merlin in that same film. Willie the Giant uses a specific set of magic words, sung in a particular song, to achieve his magic. In fact, he even sings a song specifically about how great he is, which is also exactly what Madame Mim does. The fairy godmother in Cinderella also notably has a specific set of magic words. The golden singing harp is another story. This harp is a pretty big unknown in the Disney princess verse, magically speaking, but I think the best comparison for her power set is in another, less animate object from the princess verse, the heart of Te Fiti from Moana. The heart of Te Fiti is, similar to the harp, a magical object that gives and fosters life naturally, and whose removal causes sudden and rapid decay in the area that it used to bring that life-giving magic to. One other sentient being with a similar magical property is Rapunzel from Tangled, whose hair works much the same way as the harp, producing life-giving magic activated by the singing of the magic user. The singing of specific words. It can be sung by anybody, but she can sing them herself. See how much more fun it is to talk about this short? How much more there is to dig into in the princess verse here? Anyway, princess verse over.
It's done.
The Golden Harp's song that sings to open the short, What a Lovely Day, is kind of a bop in its own right, I'm not gonna lie. Anita Gordon's voice is utterly gorgeous, lively and friendly, with a richly warm, inviting tone. It also features an aggressively musically challenged bull joining in the singing for one line. I don't know why, but that always makes me laugh. Genuinely.
My, what a happy day.
Derpy bull. Speaking of songs, I really love Donald and Goofy's 30-second rendition of Funiculi Funicula, retitled here, Eat Until I Die, as the lyrics have been refitted here to now only be concerned with the mountains of food they both plan on horking down when Mickey returns from selling the cow at the market.
I want to eat until I die.
There is a much better mix of narration from Bergen and voice work from the characters in this short versus Bongo. Whereas all we got in Bongo other than the narration was bear noises, here all three leads speak as well as the villain, and the harp and Willie eventually both sing, intermingled with quite funny narration from Bergen over parts where the three leads all engage in many fantastic silent slapstick comedy bits. The scene where they find the food in Willie's castle is fantastic, especially for Goofy. Seeing him get smacked in the face by about 7 peas in a row and then spend a solid couple of minutes walking in place on a massive cube of jello is truly a timeless delight. Willie the Giant is a time and a half. He is quite a unique villain in the Disney canon, powerful yet absent-minded, dim-witted yet cunning, adorably sweet, but then suddenly vicious. His back-and-forth battle of wits with Mickey about which animal he should turn into to amuse Mickey makes me think of Bilbo's riddles with Gollum in the cave.
Games? Oh, we love games, doesn't we, Precious? Does it like games? Does it like to play?
If Gollum was obsessed with hot pink. If I had to come up with a comparison for him, I'd say he's most similar to Tamatoa, also from Moana, who is huge and intimidating and villainous, but also goofy and silly and kind of adorable, willing to talk to and fully engage with his captive.
Hey! Did you like the song?
I really love the way Willie is animated. Just the way he simply scratches his nose with his index finger has so much personality and weight to it. Also, this is the second movie in a row, following Make Mine Music, to have a key giant character called Willie, after Willie the Whale. All the characters, as mentioned, are strong here. Donald is amazing in the sequence where he tries to murder the cow, and when he's smacked in the face by Goofy's Adam's apple. Donald is at his murderous, mind-losing best here. Goofy, as I said, is hilarious throughout, and Mickey is really great in this story, his physical business trying to avoid Willie's detection being some of the most exciting moments in the movie, and his signature resourceful nature and quick wit is on full display. My favorite dream, which the harp sings to put Willie to sleep, is the prettiest song in the film, and one of the prettiest of the era, crooned lovingly again by Anita Gordon. Underrated Disney character and voice performance, the magical golden harp from Mickey and the Beanstalk. The end of the short is fun and exciting, with some fantastic visual gags, as Goofy and Donald cut the beanstalk down ahead of Willie chasing them down it. I should also note that this is Walt Disney's farewell performance voicing Mickey Mouse, his most famous and iconic creation. Following this film, sound effects artist Jimmy McDonald would become the character's new voice actor, starting in 1948. Walt had regularly brought to life the Disney mascot since his creation over 2 decades earlier by Walt and Ub, but this was to be Walt's final full official go-round, as the classically high-pitched voice of Mickey Mouse was becoming far too taxing on the heavily smoke-damaged lungs of Walter.
I've had it with you guys and your cancer and your emphysema and your heart disease. The bottom line is smoking is cool, and you know it.
And now it's time for the Critics Roundup, which is a section at the end of these videos where I like to look at the different rankings from many people on YouTube and on the web who have looked at all the Disney animated classics, the 58 to 62, depending on when they ranked them, Disney animated classics, and they did their own rankings. And so we're going to look at where they put them in the list for this one and what they said about them. You know the drill. Let's get into it. Shea Frillis Productions, 59th, says that it is bad. The Bongo short is overlong and terrible. The Mickey half is okay. Didn't like the dummies. Sean Chandler, 56th, praises the Mickey half. Brian Hull, 47th, says both shorts are cute and fun. The Trove, 56th, says it's badly connected, the shorts are fine, but hard to get invested in. Dave Lee Down Under, 47th, says Mickey is the better short, says the two shorts don't fit together that well. Modern Mouse, 53rd, calls it the least significant package film. The 90s Kid, 32nd to 40th. Justin Watches Movies, 58th, likes that it's only 2 stories, likes Mickey and the Beanstalk, but didn't enjoy Bongo much. The Glad in Gladiator, 55th. Chris Itua, 51st, says that while the Bongo half isn't great, he likes the framing device with Jiminy, and that Mickey and the Beanstalk is arguably the best individual short of the entire package film era. Yeah, maybe. It's up there with the 2 halves of Ichabod and Mr. Toad and Willie the Whale. And of course many parts of Three Caballeros. Maple Street Movies, 44th, says that he watched the VHS a lot as a kid, that the ventriloquist stuff is a bit creepy, that Bongo and the slapping is very strange, and that Mickey and the Beanstalk is always great to watch, that it's good overall. The Movie Geek, 57th, says that even Mickey and the Gang couldn't save Fun and Fancy Free from being a horrific movie.
Damn!
Youch! Youch, the Movie Geek. You got some claws, brother. And that was the YouTube critics. Now it's time for the online critics who are a little snootier, blah, blah, blah. You know the drill. Okay. Collider, 50th, praises the second short only. Paste Magazine, 56th, says that it lacks the variety of the other packages, but Mickey and the Beanstalk is one of Disney's best works of the 40s, and Bongo isn't without its charms. Slash Film, 44th, says that Mickey and the Beanstalk is the standout, and that Bongo is a fairly silly trifle in comparison. Hollywood.com, 42nd, says, remember Mickey and the Beanstalk? This is the movie it comes from. That's all that's worth knowing about it. Yeah, golly. Basically, everybody just likes Mickey better, and they do not like the Bongo half. Like, all right, clear sign to Waltz in the 40s. In hindsight, you're dead, but it's just telling Walt in the grave, you should have made the full-length Mickey and the Beanstalk movie, my dude. You should have just made The Legend of Happy Valley and, make Bongo a 10 to 15-minute short, if anything. But you should have really made Mickey and the Beanstalk a 60 to 70-minute classic, because people would have liked it. And the animation is not worse than a lot of Dumbo. It's very good. People would have liked this as a full movie. You fumbled the bag, sir. Hard. Quality-wise.
You're just ruining it.
Look at my lips, you're ruining it.
Screen Rant, 59th, says that it isn't a satisfying farewell to Walt as Mickey, and that the quality is low overall, typical for this era of Disney. Cinema Blend, 49th, says that if their, ventriloquist Edgar Bergen and his dummies, style of humor worked for you, and it does for this writer, it's actually pretty great. The Playlist, 53rd, says that the shorts are fine enough, but pretty rote, and that the live-action scenes stop the film dead now. Unshaved Mouse, 54th, says that Bongo is dull, but that Mickey and the Beanstalk is a real gem, probably their favorite short starring Mickey. Oh, even over Sorcerer's Apprentice, nice. Noah Fryman, 53rd, says that he likes both of the shorts in this film, but that he had to take off a few points for creepy puppets. Darth Docking on Reddit, 60th. Big fat last. And there we go, 22 reviews with just one solitary reviewer, the 90s kid, placing it in their top 40, and none placing it in their top half, earning an average ranking of 51.7th, or just under 52nd, as you're seeing on the screen now. It's 8th out of the 9 we have looked at so far in the series. But yeah, people did not like this one, they did not like the Bongo half at all, and they should have stuck to Mickey and the Beanstalk and made it just a big old Mickey movie. And it just, because Mickey does not have a Disney animated classic that he is the main star of. Like, this is basically it, and then he's also got a massive part in Fantasia, and Fantasia came out of doing The Sorcerer's Apprentice, but my boy Mickey doesn't have a movie just to himself in the canon, and that's crazy. So it should have been this one. This should have just been the entire thing. You can have your framing device, blah, 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 but make it Mickey and the Beanstalk, make it The Legend of Happy Valley, make it whatever you gotta make it, but make it this story for an hour. Like, look at that. I got my Mickey diffuser for this, and every subsequent video now as well. But man, Mickey's special. You gotta show him off. You gotta do it now. You gotta make the Mickey movie when you can make the Mickey movie, is what I'm saying. You'd probably be in a lot of people's top half if you just made a Mickey movie, man. Seriously.
Am I right or am I right or am I right? Right.
Alright, I had it in the script to talk about how this should have just been an hour-long Mickey and the Beanstalk film, but I already did that in my little Critics Roundup rant, so that's pretty much perfect. Yeah, I think that everybody could probably agree that Bongo should have just been its own short, and even could have been a short that introduced this film, but then you just make a 60-minute Mickey and the Beanstalk movie. You put in Minnie as the queen, and you have Willie the Giant be an awesome villain, and you make him, taking the harp, which was the key to the kingdom's life. Make Minnie the queen, have Mickey go after the harp, and give him the magic beans, as a way to get him to do it. And she knows what the magic beans are going to do, but he doesn't, and he gives her the cow, and maybe they have like a meet cute, and then they end up together at the end. Like, there's so much they could have done for this, and they had 50 minutes animated. You could just animate another 10 or animate another 20 and rework 10. Like, man, they could have made this a killer movie. Like, probably, something really good, like a 7 or 8 out of 10, but you had to make it fun and fancy free, didn't you, Walter? You had to do it, didn't you?
And who could it have been? Who could trick us into doing that? Could have been Satan!
Golly, alright, I did a second rant in a row. Wow, good job. If I were purely rating this second short, and especially if it were 20 or 30 minutes longer and an entire film of its own, I would probably have given it something like a 7 or even an 8, and it would be close to the top half of my rankings. Yeah, to get into my top half, you kind of have to be a 9 or above. As it is, paired with Bongo, I can't really go any higher than a 4 out of 10. The Bongo half is just so much weaker, so boring and bland and worse animated and kind of irritating. Only really noteworthy for its meme and cringe value. The fact that it is the longer short by a few minutes is kind of insulting to the viewer. Ah well, more than any other movie in the entire canon, this is a film of two halves. One desperately mediocre and one surprisingly still incredible. Incredible. Ha ha ha. Bongo is, being generous, very silly but harmless garbage. Empty animated calories of the most bizarre variety.
Wow, this is garbage.
You actually like this?
But Mickey and the Beanstalk holds up incredibly well, even after almost 8 decades, and is still a tremendously funny and entertaining story for viewers of all ages. It makes me wish we saw these classic characters in mainline Disney movies again, or wish that they would revisit the story of Jack and the Beanstalk in a full feature, something they very nearly did in the cancelled Gigantic project from a few years ago. As for this one, what an odd film in the middle of a very odd era, the strangest era in Disney history. As I said earlier, an incredibly mixed 4 out of 10. If I were rating the shorts on their own, I'd probably give Bongo a 1 or a 2, and Mickey and the Beanstalk, incomplete as it is, either a 7 or an 8, and if it was completed, hey, even a 9 maybe. And so I feel like settling in the middle on a solidly underwhelming, but not horrendous 4 out of 10 is ultimately fair. And that's it. Next week we'll be back again and looking at 1948's Melody Time, another musically themed anthology film. So please do join me again for that as well. Thank you for watching, and if you're still here, good night, good luck, and enjoy the afterword.
Winds are blowing and the snow is starting in to fall. Then my eyes turn westward, knowing that's the place that I love best of all. California, I've been blue since I've been away from you. I can't wait till I get going. Even now I'm starting in to call. Oh, California, here I come, right back where I started from, where bowers of flowers bloom in the sun. Each morning at dawning, birdies sing, and everything a sun kissed, miss, said, don't be late. That's why I can hardly wait. Open up your golden gate, California, here I come. Right back where I started from, where bowers of flowers bloom in the sun. Each morning at dawning, birdies sing, and everything a sun kiss, miss, said, don't be late. That's why I can hardly wait. Open up your golden gate, California, here I come. California, here I come, right back where I started from, where bowers of flowers bloom in the sun. Each morning at dawning, birdies sing, and everything a sun kiss, miss, said, don't be late. That's why I can hardly wait. Open up your golden gate, California, here I come.
That's all.